Hey guys, I'm Cecilia Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Monster Hunter. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon. Any donations are desperately needed. With that out of the way, let's get into the review of Monster Hunter. Now, I should say that, yes, I've never played the Monster Hunter game, but this is a review of the movie, and just the movie alone. And I do find that a fascinating, thing of video game movies being constantly separated from normal movies. Majority of video game movies being in the bad category. I feel like the exceptions are now Silent Hill and Sonic the Hedgehog, for two different reasons, by the way. Silent Hill for being the most accurate to its video game counterpart, and Sonic for just being the most fun video game movie that had, even though it had a lot of cliches, still felt like it had a heart put into it. So it's still pretty, the mentality of video game movies are just bad. I still feel like that mentality still exists even to this day. Like, if we only had two video game movies that I can say are good, that means every other one is pretty bad by comparison. Oh, and the animated Mortal Kombat movie, I almost forgot about that one. The one with Scorpion. It's better than the live-action Mortal Kombat movie. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend that one. And there's also the Bayonetta movie, but I don't remember. I think that was another accuracy one. But anyway, other movies aside, let's talk about Monster Hunter. The other thing I should mention, if I didn't already, is that I did mention this, but I just want to re-emphasize, I have not played Monster Hunter, so I can't say I know much about its story in the video game. So I'm just seeing what happens in the movie again. Mila Jovovich, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, the woman from all the Resident Evil movies, plays this woman named Artemis, which her name only comes up at the end of the movie for whatever reason, is a part of this army squad. They're on a mission for something out in the desert. I'm not even sure what. They don't really seem to specify, at least I don't remember them doing it. And her squad consists of a bunch of, let's just say, dead fodder, for lack of a better term. They say some of their names, but quite honestly, it's like one of the most irrelevant names because they all end up dying pretty quickly in this movie. I couldn't even say that that's a spoiler because it all happens within the first act of the movie. But anyway, not that there's much to spoil in this movie. The story is pretty damn straightforward, which is okay. I don't know. I think they were trying to focus more on the monster hunter, the monster design. Excuse me. So I'll talk a little bit about that too. Even though CGI and visuals are something I usually don't focus on, but I feel like that's what they were trying to focus on this movie. At any rate, so this military group gets caught up in this storm, and they get transported into the Monster Hunter world. And from there, they get ambushed by a underground monster called Diablos, which is a monster from Monster Hunter. Its design is the one you see on the poster, actually. And sometimes it looks good, and other times, especially when it's turning its head specifically, in other instances, it looks really, really bad. So I could say the visuals are a mixed bag in that sort of way. But anyways, the Diablos takes out some of the guys, or at least one of them, as they are trying to, while escaping, also trying to shoot down this monster. And unbeknownst to them, at least for the beginning, they are seen by who I'll just call the Monster Hunter Man. I don't know his name in the movie. So after they barely survive Diablos, they end up in a spider cave. And after getting ambushed and like trying to avoid that as well. So they end up in a spider cave, and Mila's character, Artemis, gets like spider stabbed and then gets completely ignored, which I find really convenient for this movie. Probably the most convenient thing that happens in this movie, actually. Because she was left with like 3 people left after the Diablos attack. And there was like a squad of, I want to at least say 8 or more. Probably 10 at most. And they were down to at least 3 when they were in the cave. So, when Mila's character Artemis wakes up, she finds that the only other person alive is this, I think his name was Link. Not 100% sure about that. And they were both jabbed by the spider thing that made them fall asleep. Only his body was covered in spiders, and her body was fine. Because she's the main character, so she has to survive somehow. So again, it's the most convenient thing to happen in this movie for your main character. Not that it's important, but she's married. That's the only quality of her character that I can actually think about. So now she's by herself. She manages to get out of the spider cave, and ends up on these series of boats to find the Monster Hunter Man, and the two fight as they don't speak each other's languages and they see each other as enemies. But it does lead them to suddenly saving each other when they end up almost getting right back to the spider location. They also see that Diablos is still out there ready to hunt them as soon as they step foot out in his area zone. So, through the power of simple communication, Monster Hunter Man suggests that they lure out the spiders to kill one, steal its sleepy juice, and then affect Diablos with it. So, they use her as a distraction and successfully kill it using his weapons, thus allowing them to set up a new trap for Diablos, which involves the boats and this barrel that they toss and distract, and they get ready and attack. They are successful, and weakening Diablos to the point well enough where they can end it. Both participants do pretty good jobs, both sequentially in the fight and both sequentially in taking out the Monster Hunter, which is probably the only good thing in this movie, is that they don't degrade either character for obvious, I'm going to say the obvious thing, the obvious woke nature of 2020. At least this movie doesn't degrade itself to that level, which is completely unnecessary because you could just have the characters be badasses, and that's exactly what this movie does. So, surprise, surprise, I'm actually going to say Monster Hunter is more woke than the things that are trying to be woke in this generation. Hilarious. Anyway, moving right along. So they end up killing Diablos. And so they proceed forth, and they end up getting captured by Ron Perlman, of all people. He's in this movie, which I was surprised that he was in this movie. He plays another character whose name I do not know. I'll call him the general of the group that they run into. Yes, they run into a bunch of other monster hunters in their little group. They capture her and knock her out for some reason. You also see the one Palico, which I know I have not played a Monster Hunter, but I know for a fact that the Palicos also help you out in battle, so I think they highly got that one wrong, but they probably couldn't afford to get more than one person, because it does look like a person in a slightly CGI situation. One person in a Palico CGI situation, they can only afford that much. So there's the one Palico. It's as tall as a human, which I think is inaccurate. I actually don't know how tall Palicos are supposed to be. So yeah, I'm aware of Palicos at the very minimum. But anyways, so it's cooking, and then it does its thing, and then that's its moment in the entire movie. Meanwhile, Ron Perlman does his exposition about this tower, which we saw at the beginning when as soon as they teleported in. So we, even as the audience, kind of knew where they were going to end up going. So this exposition didn't really need to happen, but it ends up happening regardless. And they also mentioned the new monster they end up facing, which is Rathalos, the flying monster. Very dragon-like in nature. But along the way, before they got there, Monster Hunter Man trained her with these two swords, what you've seen her in the poster with. The swords flame up when they touch in a certain way. So they did that. They ran into some other monsters in the water. I don't know what those are called because I forgot what they were. I know they mentioned the name, but I just didn't write it down. But anyways, they end up with the Rathalos, the Monster Hunter group they are now situated with, joins them. The only one I could point out other than Exposition Ron Perlman is this one that uses the eyeglass to look out. They make her stand out in the movie a little bit, but I only mean that by giving her a little bit of extra camera time. Other than that, she just kind of looks out for it. So, Artemis ends up jumping down while facing the Rathalos into this portal. She ends up back in the human world. And thus, the Rathalos is able to follow her through. So she gets the reinforcements that are looking around the area for their group anyways. And they try to take it down, but they have no luck. So the Monster Hunter group, or at least one of them, Ron Perlman himself, enters through with Monster Hunter Man to help save her. To help her out. But she was doing pretty good on her own regardless, but she gets a little bit of an extra assist. So the three of them, working together, were able to kill that Rathalos, but they were still near the tower, so they end up getting caught up and end up getting killed. That being the Rathalos that they are probably now facing. But that's also the end of the movie, is them charging up into that second Rathalos. And that was pretty much Monster Hunter the movie. That's it. The story isn't complex in the slightest. The characters aren't thought out at all. They're just the first section of is canon death fodder, and the second half are irrelevant Monster Hunter characters, I'm gonna go ahead and give this movie like a 4 out of 10, or even a 3 out of 10. It's not good in terms of storytelling. It's simplistic. So if you ended up enjoying this video, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord server and the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated.